Namaste everyone. Welcome to NEET JEE Mains class. Today we will have the synopsis of thermodynamics. We have seen thermal properties of matter, few questions in it. Namaste, welcome to the class. Hope you are doing well. Today we will see thermodynamics, right? The process of flow of heat energy, conversion of heat energy into mechanical work. So heat energy can be converted into mechanical work and vice versa also. The mechanical work done on the gas can be converted into energy. So we have here some thermodynamic processes and the molar specific heat and working on it, and some first law of thermodynamics, zeroth law of thermodynamics, heat engine, and so on. Okay, so starting from the first law of thermodynamics, right, and the specific heat, molar specific heats. So they have some relations. What does the zeroth law of thermodynamics say, right? From zeroth law, not first law. Zeroth law of thermodynamics says that whenever heat energy is transferred between two substances, suppose two substances are in thermal equilibrium with the third system C, for example, A and B are in thermal equilibrium with the third system C, then the A and B are in thermal equilibrium with each other, right? So if A is in thermal equilibrium with the third system C, B is in thermal equilibrium with the third system C, then A and B are also in thermal equilibrium with each other. So that means if two systems are under thermal equilibrium, there should be a constant term for both of them. That criteria which is constant for both of them is called temperature. Okay, now so if you want to supply heat energy to a substance, you can put it in many ways. And now the first law of thermodynamics says that whenever heat energy is supplied to a substance, for a gas or a system, the amount of heat energy given to the system is equal to the sum of increase in the internal energy and work done on the gas, or work done by the gas. So amount of heat energy absorbed by the system is equal to the sum of changes in the internal energy and work done on the gas or by the gas, depending on how do you take the equation, right? So the heat energy absorbed by a system is equal to the increase in the internal energy plus external work done by the gas. So this is nothing but the law of conservation of energy. That is the first law of thermodynamics. Okay, now coming back to CP, CV, all right. What is CP? The molar specific heat at constant pressure is the amount of heat energy required to raise the temperature of 1 mole of the substance by 1 Kelvin, keeping pressure constant. And CV is the amount of heat energy required to raise the temperature of 1 mole of the substance by 1 Kelvin by keeping volume constant. This is by keeping pressure constant, but this is by keeping volume constant. So if you take a system like this with a piston, very a soft piston without any friction, and it can move freely. So if you take a gas inside this, say 1 mole of the gas, when you take 1 mole of the gas and heat it, and suppose the temperature is increased by keeping volume constant, all the heat energy supplied here is used to raise the temperature of the gas, because no need of doing any external work. Whatever the heat energy you have supplied, it is perfectly used to raise the temperature, because it is used to increase the internal energy of the gas. You know that internal energy corresponds to the kinetic energy of the gas molecules, and whatever the energy that you supply from outside other than kinetic energy, it is not used for anything else, because there is nothing work done, extra work done. So now all the heat energy supplied is used to do the external work. So if you is used to increase the internal energy. So if you write CV, the molar specific heat at constant volume, if it is delta Q by delta T, right, then delta Q is equal to CV delta T. What is CV delta T? It is the total amount of heat energy required to raise the temperature of the gas by some means of temperature. Say delta T is maybe 5 Kelvin, 10 Kelvin, anything. So all the heat energy is used to raise the temperature of the gas. So that is as if no work is done. Delta W is equal to 0. Delta Q is delta U only. Internal energy is increased. But when you keep the pressure constant, CP, if you want to keep the pressure constant, you should allow the piston to move. You have to adjust with the volume, because if you try to keep the same volume and try to increase the internal energy of the gas, what happens is the internal pressure of the gas will start increasing, because as the gas expands, there is no enough space and you are not giving extra volume, the pressure develops. So if you want to keep the pressure volume, you have to allow the piston to move. So when the piston is allowed to move, you can maintain the same pressure. As the pressure develops, we are increasing the volume, so that makes the pressure to come back to the same value as original. So if the pressure is kept constant, and in order to keep the pressure constant, you need to do some work. That means the gas molecules need to do some external work. So with the intention of increasing the internal energy, that means increasing the temperature of the gas, we have supplied heat energy. But that heat energy is not only used to increase the temperature, that means increase the internal energy, it is also used to do external work. So Cp is equal to delta Q by delta T, or that implies delta Q here, when pressure is kept constant, Cp delta T, that involves not only the increase in internal energy, but also involves the external work done. So always Cp is greater than Cv, because while increasing the temperature by keeping pressure constant, some extra amount of heat energy is also needed to raise the to do the external work. So all the heat energy is not used to raise the temperature. So inside Cp there is Cv also. There is an increase in internal energy as well as external work done. So Cp is always greater than 1. Cp is greater than Cv. Now, so in other terms, you can write it like this. Delta U, increase in internal energy, is found only during constant volume. So I can write it like this, Cv delta T. But this is Cp delta T, because delta W is needed when Cp is calculated. That means to keep the pressure constant, you need to do both. By keeping the pressure constant, if you want to raise the temperature, you have to do both. That means you have to raise the temperature, keep on doing the work in moving the piston. But when you are raising the temperature, keeping volume constant, you need not to worry about the work, because you are keeping the piston intact without moving, volume remains constant, no external work has to be done, everything is used to raise the internal energy. So I can replace this as, this is Cp dt, it is the total work done, including the, total heat energy supplied, including internal energy plus work done. Whereas du is only Cv dt. So you can write this, write like this way also. And so first law of thermodynamics can be put either like this way, dq is equal to du plus dw if it is a small change in the internal energy, and you can write it as Cp dt is equal to Cv dt, which is only increase in the internal energy, plus dw can be written as pdv. What is pdv? pdv is nothing but work done. So pressure into change in volume is always work done. Even in dimensions you can check this. Pressure into change in volume is work done. See, pressure is force by area. Volume is, suppose you have a piston like this in a cylinder, and volume increases like this, then you can write it as the displacement of the piston into the area of the piston. That is the change in volume, isn't it? If a area piston moves from here to here, what is the change in the volume? Delta V. So pressure, I am writing this one, right? Pressure is force by area. What is dV? Change in volume. Area into the displacement. Area of the piston into displacement. That is the change in volume. So this gets cancelled. What is force into displacement? Work done, dW. So P into the change in volume, pressure into change in volume is always work done. Now you know that PV equal to mu RT, or if you take 1 mole it is RT, because everything explanation here is for 1 mole, because Cp and Cv are always, what is this one? This is Cv delta T, Cv dt. Cp and Cv are always calculated for 1 mole, and PV is equal to RT here, mu is 1, then if I write P delta V change in volume, then R delta T. So can I replace this P delta V is equal to R delta T, Cv dt is equal to Cp dt is equal to Cv dt plus R dt, right? P dV is equal to R dt, then dt gets cancelled. Cp is equal to Cv plus R, that implies Cp minus Cv is equal to universal gas constant. So this is called Mayer's equation, right? Of course, this method is very important. Why did we get this? Because the problems will be given in such a way that you must be able to put any one of the equation in this. Either you have to put the first law of thermodynamics as a conservation of energy formula, supplied energy is equal to increase in the internal energy plus work done, one way. Another way, you can put it as Cp dt, Cv dt and work done. And work done can be written as PdV, which is also equal to RdT, Cp minus Cv equal to R, or Cp equal to Cv plus R. So anyway, so formulas, we have come across many formulas now. Okay, next. Regarding again Cp and Cv. Now Cp by Cv, so we have dq is equal to, okay, I'll write the formulas here, somewhere here, because I have so much of synopsis to be told. Okay, I'll put a line over here, I think it's okay, right. dq is equal to du plus dw. Then Cp dt is equal to Cv dt is equal, plus R dt or PdV. PdV is always work done. If you have a pressure versus volume diagram, area under that diagram gives the work done. Okay. Then what else here? Cp minus Cv is equal to R, and Cp by Cv is gamma, the ratio of specific heats. That gives the atomicity of the material. For any gas, any system, Cp by Cv is very important. Gamma, the ratio of specific heats. Of course, it is always greater than 1. Why? Because Cp is greater than Cv. Cp by Cv is gamma, it is always greater than 1. Now, right, when you use this formula, of course, you have one more term here coming along with this, that is degrees of freedom. You have to connect them with the Cp and Cv. Degrees of freedom. Degrees of freedom refers to the possible independent motions for a system. When you take a gas, it may be a monoatomic gas, right? One molecule may have one atom only, right? For example, monoatomic gas molecules like hydrogen is diatomic, helium, for example. Helium is monoatomic. Hydrogen is diatomic, oxygen is diatomic, nitrogen diatomic, then carbon dioxide triatomic, right? CO2, and helium is monoatomic gas molecule. If you supply heat energy to a monoatomic gas molecule in bulk, right? You take 1 mole of the gas. What these gas molecules will do? They simply move around. So they use their energy as kinetic energy. The energy supplied is used as kinetic energy of the gas molecules. They move here and there and hit the walls, and they show the energy supplied absorbed in the form of kinetic energy. That is what you call internal energy. As the heat energy supplied goes on increasing to the gas, the kinetic energy of the gas molecules go on increasing. So kinetic energy of the gas molecules is a measure of temperature. It is directly proportional to temperature. It is not equal to temperature, it is directly proportional to temperature. So the square of the velocity of the gas molecules is proportional to temperature. We will come across that formula also. How is RMS velocity of the gas molecules related to kinetic energy? Square of the RMS velocity is directly proportional to the absolute temperature of the gas, because kinetic energy is proportional to the absolute temperature. Kinetic energy is half m square. So for a monoatomic gas molecule, it can move in 3 dimensions. Whatever the heat energy is supplied, that is used by the gas molecule to move in 3 dimensions. Of course, won't it use the heat energy to rotate, sir? To spin by about its axis. Yes, it will use the heat energy supplied to spin also, but the amount of heat energy used is very, very less, negligibly small, so we delete that part. So suppose you take heat energy, or you take some energy in the form of food or something, some calories of food every day morning, say. For what purpose you will use the energy consumed? You will use it for reading, you will use it for writing, you will use it for dancing, and this one and that one. And they are all called degrees of freedom. How many degrees of freedom a student will have? Plenty of degrees of freedom, because there is no limit. We don't know for what purpose you will use the consumed energy. You have plenty of degrees of freedom. There is no fixed number. But a monoatomic gas molecule has got 3 degrees of freedom. What do you mean by 3 degrees of freedom? Moving in 3 directions. Because if you want to locate the position of a molecule in gas molecule in a space, we need 3 coordinate systems, isn't it? Suppose a gas molecule moves from one corner to another corner, or one position to another position in a chamber, in a system, in a cylinder. Then, in order to note down the position of the molecule, you need 3 coordinate system. The x position, y position and z position. That's why when it moves from one point to another, x, y, z coordinates will change. That's why we say it has got 3 degrees of freedom. An ant moving in a string, a train moving in a track has got only 1 degree of freedom. It has no freedom to move anywhere else other than the track, other than the string. Only 1 degree of freedom. A ship moving sailing on the sea has got only 2 degrees of freedom. And it can move in x-axis or y-axis. That means when it changes the position like this, it has the freedom to move in a plane, and its position can be noted using x and y positions, ax I cap, ay j cap. You know it. So its position coordinates are ax into I cap, ay into j cap. So it has got 2 degrees of freedom. It has no freedom to move up or down, except Titanic ship which had opportunity to go down also. So, but that is not a thing which is always welcome. So it has got 2 degrees of freedom. An aeroplane, a flying bird has got 3 degrees of freedom. It can move in 3 coordinate systems. Similarly, a gas molecule. A gas molecule is free to move in anywhere in space, so it has got 3 degrees of freedom. It can move in x-axis, y-axis, z-axis, anywhere. And as it moves from one place to another, its 3 coordinates will change. ax I cap plus ay j cap plus az k cap. So it has got 3 degrees of freedom. And this is, I am talking about a monoatomic molecule like helium, which is only one atom in a molecule. It is independent. It can have 3 directional motions, and of course it will have a spin motion. The energy needed for spin motion is very less, so we neglect it. So a monoatomic gas molecule has got 3 degrees of freedom. 3 degrees of freedom. Now, the energy supplied from outside, heat energy supplied from outside, is used by this monoatomic molecule to move in 3 directions. So it uses for 3 motions. Now you ask a helium molecule, you call a helium molecule, I have supplied some energy, helium, why, for what purpose you are using it? Helium molecule says, sir, I am using the supplied heat energy to move in 3 directions. Okay, how much did you use, how much energy did you use to move in x-axis? How much did you use in to move in y-axis? How much energy is used to move in z-axis? Helium molecule says, I am using equally the energy in all the 3 directions. If at all I have used, say, some 9 joules of energy to move from one place to another, remember, I have used energy 3 joules to move in x-axis, 3 joules to move in y-axis, 3 joules to move in z-axis. That is what we call law of equipartition of energy. Law of equipartition of energy says that the energy, supplied energy, heat energy, is distributed equally among all the 3 degrees of freedom. Among all the degrees of freedom, whatever be the degrees of freedom it has got, independent motions it has got, or how many coordinates are required to define its motion, in all the degrees of freedom, it is equally distributed. That is called law of equipartition of energy. That is not true in our case, isn't it? As soon as you get up, you take food and consume so many calories. Do you use equal energy to watch TV? Do you, as you have used for reading, as you have used for working in home? No, we don't use equally for all the degrees of freedom. We use it uneven, right? Unevenly. Some people may use more energy to watch TV than to read. Some people may use more energy to play than to work at home. So different energies. But gas molecules are not so. They use equal energies for all the degrees of freedom. So if suppose U is the energy supplied to a gas, what is the energy associated with each degree of freedom by the gas molecule? By 3, because it has used it for 3 degrees of freedom. Okay, so monoatomic gas has got 3 degrees of freedom. What about a diatomic gas molecule, like hydrogen? 2 atoms in a molecule. Now, a diatomic molecule like hydrogen has to do a few more things when it moves from one place to another. It will move along x, y, z axis. At the same time, it can rotate in 2 ways. It can rotate either like this, with this as axis, and it can rotate, okay, So this is the diatomic molecule. It can, as it moves from one place to another, it can rotate like this. So moving from one place to another, at the same time it can turn like this. So it can turn, it can rotate, so it has got two rotational motions. One rotation along this axis, like this, and another rotation along this axis. So one like this, another like this. Everything is done when it moves like this, right? It rotates along this axis, this axis. So a diatomic molecule has got 5 degrees of freedom. 5 degrees of freedom. It will use the supplied energy to all the degrees of freedom equally. In order to rotate like this, energy used is same as in order to rotate like this and in order to move in the 3 directions. So diatomic molecule has got 3 translational degrees of freedom. That means 3 translational motions and 2 rotational motions. Totally it has got 5 degrees of freedom. What about polyatomic molecule? It may have more than 5 and sometimes, and I can name, simply I can take an example as 6, but it will have more degrees of freedom. A polyatomic molecule will have 6 or more than 6 degrees of freedom. It can have different types of activities and it has to use the energy for those different types of activities. And the law of equipartition of energy says energy distributed for each degree of freedom is equal, right, in the case of gas molecules. Now, if you have this idea, that means a monoatomic gas molecule has got 3 degrees of freedom, diatomic 5 degrees of freedom, 3 translational, 2 rotational, and polyatomic say 6, it is more than 6 also. Then can you get a relation between Cp, Cv, gamma for different different types of gases? Yes, you can have that. So better you remember this table every time. If I write it like this, then I will write here the type of gas, right? Monoatomic, diatomic and polyatomic type of gas. Then what else I can write? Degrees of freedom here, number of degrees of freedom. And next I can write gamma is equal to, there is a formula for gamma, 1 plus 2 by f, 1 plus 2 by f, and you can write gamma in another way also. What is that? Cv is equal to Rf by 2. So you have plenty of formulas now, you see. Cv is equal to Rf by 2. I think I have to extend the this table now. So shall I write it again here somewhere? Yeah, we will have the table here. Like this. So here is the type of gas, and yeah, the number of degrees of freedom here. And gamma, remember this formula, 1 plus 2 by f. If you put f here, you will get the ratio of specific heats. Ratio of specific heats can be calculated using this formula also. So how can we get it? A Cv is equal to Rf by 2, another formula. What is Cp? Cp is equal to Cv plus R. See, because Cp minus Cv is equal to R, Cp is equal to Cv plus R. Now gamma is equal to Cp by Cv. And remember, these two tables should agree each other, correct? So what is the gamma value of monoatomic, diatomic and polyatomic? Mono, di and poly. Monoatomic gas, diatomic gas molecule and polyatomic gas molecule. And if it has got many atoms in a molecule. Monoatomic gas molecule, number of degrees of freedom 3. This is 5, say this is 6. Gamma, 1 plus 2 by f. 1 plus 2 by 3. This is 5 by 3, right? 1 plus 2 by 5, 7 by 5. See, this is 1.2, this is 1.66 something. So monoatomic gas molecule has got more gamma because it has got less number of degrees of freedom, right? Because energy is equally distributed among the degrees of freedom. So more gamma and less degrees of freedom. What about this one? So if I write is 1 plus 2 by 3, then it is 5 by 3, isn't it? No. 1 plus, this is 2 by 6, 1 plus 1 by 3, that is 4 by 3, right? If it is having 6 degrees of freedom. If there are many degrees of freedom, of course you have to change this. 1.33 and 1.4 and 1.7 almost, right? 1.66 something. See the values as we go from mono to di to polyatomic gas, the gamma value goes on decreasing. That you have to remember. CV, so we will find it out using this method. CV is equal to, I should have color chalk, don't have, okay, let it be. CV equal to RF by 2. So what is the specific heat at constant volume? Specific heat at constant volume. RF by 2. RF by 2 means 3R by 2. 5R by 2. 6R by 2. I'll take it as it is. Now Cp is equal to Cv plus R plus 1R. What is this? 5R by 2. Plus R. Plus R. 7R by 2. Plus R. Of course, this is 3R, we will write it. This is 4R. Now, shall we get the same answer as this one? Gamma, Cp by Cv. Cp, 5R by 2 by 3R by 2. 5 by 3, 7R by 2, 7 by 5, and 4R by 4 by 3. Correct? So, we get this. This is, this table, better you remember this. If you remember these formulas, don't by heart this. Just remember degrees of freedom and all the formulas. That will give you the beautiful answer. So, Cp by Cv is gamma along with those formulas here also. Okay, now, so that is about the molar specific heats and their relations, monoatomic, diatomic and triatomic gas molecules. So, and law of equipartition of energy also. Now, we know that the heat energy supplied to any gas is used as the kinetic energy of the gas molecules, and if you want to know what is the formula for the what you can write, the RMS speed of the all gas molecules. RMS speed V bar, because every gas molecule is moving in a random direction such that the whole gas will not have velocity at all inside a cylinder. The total gas is at rest, but individually molecules will be moving. The net velocity of all the molecules will be 0. If you take the average velocity, it is 0, because if one molecule is moving in one direction, another molecule will be moving in the opposite direction. Net velocity is 0. That's why we go for RMS speed. RMS speed of the gas molecule is given by 3RT by M. So RMS speed of any gas molecule is square root of 3RT by M, where it is V bar is directly proportional to root T. RMS speed is directly proportional to root T, and here it is molecular weight, and RMS speed is inversely proportional to square root of molecular weight of the gas molecule. Constant temperature, of course 3 and R universal gas constant and this number are they are however constants. But if you take temperature constant, RMS speed is inversely proportional to molecular weight. What do you mean by that? At the same temperature, if you have hydrogen and oxygen, at the same temperature, oxygen molecules will have lesser speed, RMS speed, than hydrogen, because hydrogen molecular weight is 2 grams for hydrogen, because there are 2 atoms in one molecule. Hydrogen molecular weight is 2, but but oxygen is 32. So when you put 32 here, you will get a less RMS speed. So RMS speed of oxygen molecules are less compared to the hydrogen molecules at the same temperature. And V bar is directly proportional to T also. Okay, I'll rub this. And if you want to put, kinetic energy of gas molecules is directly proportional to absolute temperature, because it is half mv square, correct? And V bar can be written also as another formula. And if you multiply it by the number of Avogadro number, what you will get is root of 3 kBT by the mass of the gas molecule, right? If m is the mass of the gas and kb is the Boltzmann constant, then V bar is 3 kBT by m. And you have another one, the pressure exerted by the gas on the walls of the container. One more formula, 1 by 3 m n V bar square. This is another formula for pressure. Pressure inside a gas is given by 1 by 3 mn V bar square, and pressure is directly proportional to V bar square, square of the RMS speed, and this is the mass of each gas molecule and n number of molecules. Okay, so that formula is also important, right? So here we may get, if the mass of each gas molecule is halved and number of molecules is doubled, what happens to the pressure and all those things, and also the RMS speed. If it is changed, how will be the pressure, everything. Okay, so those formulas. Then coming back to this thermodynamics now. if you go to the heat engines, very important part here. Any heat engine, if it is described in terms of pressure and volume, the area under, this is the normal Carnot's heat engine, you know it, 2 isothermal and 2 adiabatic processes. The area under this curve gives the work done, right? Because P into V, P into change in volume is the work done. Okay, now if you use the first law of thermodynamics, that is dq is equal to du plus dw for different processes. First of all, you must be acquainted with all the processes: isothermal, adiabatic, isochoric, isobaric and all. What is isothermal? Isothermal process is a process where temperature is kept constant. That means no change in the internal energy. Kinetic energy of the gas molecules doesn't change because we are not changing the temperature. dq is equal to dw. All the heat energy supplied is used to do the external work because we don't have any job in increasing the internal energy. All the heat energy is used to do the external work. What is isothermal? Isochoric process. Isochoric process is a process where volume is kept constant, then no work is done because you are not moving the piston at all. All the heat energy supplied is used to increase the internal energy of the gas. This is best example for CVDT, right? Because a specific heat at constant volume is the amount of heat energy required to raise the temperature of 1 mole of the gas by 1 Kelvin, keeping volume constant. So dq is equal to du. So isochoric process is a process where heat energy supplied is directly used to increase the internal energy. No work is done. Volume is kept constant. Third one, okay, isobaric process. Pressure is kept constant. In isobaric process, remember, everything is present. Nothing is zero. In order to keep the pressure constant, this is actually CPDT, pressure constant, right? When you want to keep the pressure constant and in order to increase the internal energy, you have to move the piston. So work is done. Work is done, there is an increase in the internal energy, there is a heat energy supply. So now for adiabatic process. For adiabatic process, what you can write? Yeah. What is an adiabatic process? Heat energy is neither absorbed by the system nor given out of the system. It is thermally isolated. You can't supply heat energy inside, and inside heat energy cannot come out. It is thermally insulated or isolated system. So what is adiabatic process? Heat energy is not supplied. du plus dw. So how do you realize this? Minus du is equal to dw. What do you mean by that? Work done by the system is equal to decrease in the internal energy of the system. When the work is done by the system itself, piston is moved at the cost of its own internal energy, the internal energy will decrease. Or you can put the minus on the other way also. du is equal to dw minus dw, that is plus. Work done on the system is equal to increase in the internal energy. Of course, if you have realized it in some or other way in chemistry, you can follow the same method. Now I'll do it like this. Work done by the system, decrease in the internal energy. Work done on the system, so if you push the piston from external mechanical energy, then increase in the internal energy can be seen. The increase in the internal energy is called work done on the system. Decrease in the internal energy is work done by the system. So that is the way in which you do that. So now, going to the heat engine. Heat engine is a device which converts heat energy into mechanical work and vice versa. Heat engine. Now, what are the main parts of heat engine? Of course, just a qualitative discussion, you know everything about it. If your heat engine has to work, it has to get the heat energy from somewhere else because heat energy must be supplied. It needs a source, that is a hot reservoir which can give away heat energy to this working substance. So you need a working substance, you need a hot reservoir which will supply the heat energy. And the gas, which is working substance, will do some work, and after doing the work, it won't use all the heat energy absorbed to do the work. Some amount of heat energy is converted into work. Remaining heat energy must be given out, because if it has to be repeated, that means if you want the energy to or work to be done by the gas or the system again and again, it has to return back to the original state. That means it has to return the remaining energy back. So somebody must be there to receive it again. that is called cold reservoir or sink. We sometimes we call it a sink or cold reservoir. So what are the essential parts of heat engine? One is a hot reservoir, which will supply heat energy, cold reservoir, which will receive the remaining heat energy, and a working substance. So these are the things needed. So you need a working substance, right? Working substance is a gas taken in a cylinder because it will do the work, and here it should be a hot reservoir, and say it is at a higher temperature T1, and hot reservoir should be very, very strong. That means even if it supplies the heat energy, its temperature shouldn't change. That is a very interesting thing. For example, if a refrigerator is working, the heat energy will be given out by the refrigerator outside, right? What about the temperature of the surroundings? It won't increase, because environment is such a huge system that if you keep some iron box or some refrigerator switched on, whatever the heat energy is released from the iron box or refrigerator won't change the temperature of the surroundings. Surrounding is such a large system. Even if you remove heat energy from the surroundings and give it to some other objects, for example, in a ground, if you keep some ice pieces, what happens? Ice pieces will absorb heat energy from the surroundings, and they get melted. Will the temperature of the surroundings will it change? No, never, because it is such a large system that whatever the small amount of heat energy absorbed by the ice to melt itself will not change the temperature of the surroundings. It is such a large system. Take one glass of water from the sea. Will it change the sea water level? No, never, because it is nothing to see. So it is a very having infinite large capacity. That is such a type of hot reservoir. So if you remove heat energy from the hot reservoir, its temperature doesn't change. So it will be a T1 only. Similarly, the cold reservoir. If you supply some amount of heat energy to the cold reservoir, its temperature doesn't change. It remains the same. So from the hot reservoir, we are supplying heat energy and absorbed by the system working substance, let it be Q1. Now, working substance does some work and gives away the remaining heat energy to the cold reservoir. Cold reservoir is always at a lower temperature because it must be in a position to receive the heat energy. You know that heat energy always flows from a hot object to the cold object, from higher temperature to lower temperature. So in between you will have some work done. This is the flow chart for that. So the working substance, that is some gas taken in a cylinder, will absorb heat energy from the source, and it will expand, compress, it will do some isothermal or adiabatic changes, and then remaining heat energy it will give away, and during that time it has done some work. And if Q2 is the amount of heat energy released, then Q1 is absorbed, Q2 is given out. How much is work done then? You take 100 rupees from your father. Father is a hot reservoir. He can give any amount of money to you, right? So you take 100 rupees from your father. Go to the town and spend some money. Do your work. Your work means putting everything into your stomach. That is your work, heavy work. Do something and eat whatever you want. Come back home and give away 30 rupees to your mother, which is remaining, right? You don't want to keep any money, say. You give 30 rupees to your mother. Mother is a cold reservoir, ready to receive anything from you. Say, we will take it like an example. So 100 rupees you have taken from father, 30 rupees you have given it to mother. Neither 100 nor 30 is the work done. Work done is that remaining in between, that is 70. So work done is always equal to Q1 minus Q2. So work done is equal to Q1 minus Q2. That means all the heat engines don't convert all the heat energy absorbed into work. They convert some amount of heat energy absorbed into work, and remaining heat energy is given back. Okay. Then what do you mean by efficiency of heat engine? It is the output work, how much work is done divided by the energy input, the energy absorbed. Suppose if I take 100 rupees and spend 70 rupees, return back 30 rupees, what is your efficiency? Only 70%. Out of 100, you have spent only 70 rupees. You have done a work of 70 rupees. So your efficiency is 70%. And so how can I write this then? Q1 minus Q2 divided by Q1. So shall I write it as 1 minus Q2 by Q1? If I divide it by Q1 everywhere, Q1 by Q1, Q2 by Q1, 1 minus Q2 by Q1. So that is the efficiency of a heat engine, and it can also be written as 1 minus T2 by T1. I don't go for the derivation. So efficiency of a heat engine is the ratio of work done, work output divided by the input, energy absorbed, out of what has taken, how much is the work? Q1 minus Q2 by Q1, 1 minus Q2 by Q1, 1 minus T2 by T1. And if you want to know what is the work done by the Carnot heat engine, for example, what you have to do is, you have to take the area under this graph. You know that 4 processes, isothermal and isothermal adiabatic, isothermal expansion, adiabatic expansion, because this is a PV diagram, isothermal compression, adiabatic compression. Get the area under this graph. That also gives the work done. This is heat engine part, right? And no heat engine can give 100% efficiency. Why? If it has to be 100% efficient, that means what are all the energy is given to the heat engine, completely it must be converted into work. That is possible only when this, if and eta is equal to 1. Eta is equal to 1 if this part is 0. T2 is 0. 1 minus 0 is eta equal to 1, right? Efficiency is equal to 1. Either this one is Q2 is 0 or okay, Q2 by Q1 is 0. Q1 cannot be 0 because if Q1 is 0 means nothing is absorbed. That is meaningless. So if Q2 is equal to 0, that is T2 is equal to 0 Kelvin. But you know that 0 Kelvin is not possible. So no heat engine can be 100% efficient. Its efficiency is always less than 100%. Okay. Now what about refrigerator? It works opposite to Carnot cycle, heat engine. Now, what about in refrigerator, all the formulas? So I will write the formula of heat engine here. Eta is equal to 1 minus Q2 by Q1, 1 minus T2 by T1, or I can write it as Q1 minus Q2, work done divided by heat energy, or T1 minus T2 by T1. Actually, this is work output divided by input heat energy absorbed. Heat energy absorbed. Okay, that is the formula. Now, what is a refrigerator? Refrigerator is one which works opposite to Carnot cycle. How? What do you mean by opposite? It absorbs heat energy from the cold reservoir, like this. Sir, can it absorb the heat energy from the cold reservoir? Because you know that heat energy must always flow from higher temperature body to a lower temperature body. How can the heat energy be absorbed from the cold reservoir? How can this gas, which is at a higher temperature, absorb heat energy from a body from a lower temperature? This is possible under the guidance, under the aid of some external agency. Somebody must do work on the gas. Gas by itself can't do that. Work should be done on the gas now. How? By using electrical energy. You use electrical energy because without power supply, this refrigerator can't work. So this is reverse. Supply the energy from, so that means supply the work from outside. Do work on the gas. Force it to absorb the heat energy from the cold reservoir. Combine them and release it to the hot reservoir surroundings. Refrigerator, AC room will be at a lower temperature compared to the outside, right? So AC refrigerator, what it will do? It will absorb the heat energy from a colder substance and gives it to a outside world, outside surroundings, which is at a higher temperature. So supply of heat energy from lower temperature to higher temperature. This cannot happen by itself. You need some external agency to help you. That is electrical energy. So how can you draw the flow chart for this one refrigerator? So refrigerator flow chart will be like this. I think you can see this. Yeah, here is the working substance, that is gas. It should absorb heat energy from the cold reservoir, right? Which is at a temperature T2. Now in order to do that, you must get the help from this work is done on the gas. You have to compress the gas using external compressor, which will work using electrical supply. So you should compress the gas. Then you have to release the heat energy to the hot reservoir. And using this, so this is Q1 minus Q2, work done on the gas. Of course, formulas remain the same. Q2, add these two, Q1 minus Q2 plus Q2. Totally heat energy is given to outside hot reservoir, which is temperature T1. So both these added together, heat energy absorbed from the cold reservoir, that is in the working substance now, and it has to be compressed, work has to be done on the gas, and totally it should be given to the hot reservoir. It works opposite to the Carnot cycle. This is a very simple explanation, right? Now, so we don't define any efficiency for a refrigerator. We don't define any efficiency. We define a term called coefficient of performance. Coefficient of performance. Coefficient of performance of a refrigerator is defined as what is the formula? Beta I will write, or alpha is equal to Q2 heat energy absorbed from the cold reservoir ratio to the work done on the gas. Q2 by Q1 minus Q2 or T2 by T1 minus T2. This is the formula. So coefficient of performance of a refrigerator is defined as the ratio of heat energy absorbed from the cold reservoir to the work done on the gas, Q1 minus Q2. So that is how we define T2 by T1 minus T2, or Q2, okay, that formula is enough. So this is about heat engine. I don't go much about that because you know the theory, just a refreshing part, that's all. And you have that second law of thermodynamics, which says no process is possible whose sole result is the transfer of heat energy from a cold body to a hot body, right? If you have the heat energy flowing from cold body to hot body, by itself it cannot happen. It can happen only with the aid of external agency. You have to do the work on the gas and you have to do that. Okay, so that is a synopsis part, and you have so many things to discuss inside about this again, and I have touched only the parts where you have some areas from where you can get the questions, and we will discuss more about this with the questions later. Thanks for watching my class. We will meet in the next class with lot of questions. Thank you. Take care of your health, and we will see in the next class.